I'm a front-end developer at Codewise, and what we do there is that we are responsible for creating, developing, and maintaining complex single-page applications. And guess which tool are we using to do that? No, not kind of. It starts with A, so it's Ember. Yeah. No, it's Angular, guys. Yeah. So we started using it like 1 year ago, right? After it was released. So it was September 2016. And why we decided to do that? There were a number of reasons for that, but one of them was that our apps require a lot of asynchronously loaded data from like different sources. So, as you all know, Angular works really well with it, with that kind of stuff. So that's why I'm here today, because I would like to share with you some tips and tricks about working with components and dynamically loaded data into them. So we'll be like talking mostly about router and mostly about resolver, because I think it's kind of an underestimated topic. And one more thing before we start, if you would like to say something about this talk, or just give me some feedback, or just roast me, you can do it on Twitter. Like, here's my Twitter handle in the right bottom corner. I'm sure that all of my 10 followers will be happy to join the discussion, so yeah. So, quick agenda of this talk. First of all, I'm gonna briefly introduce you to the router and to the resolver. What is it? And then we're gonna look at the app. It is a very simple app, but it has some potential problems. So, as developers, we are gonna fix them. So, with help of resolver and router. So, let's go. So, why resolver anyway? What is resolver? I mean, it's one of the router's guards, right? Maybe you know that, maybe not. But router is a separated part of Angular platform. So if you want to build your single-page applications, you can do it without router, but I can promise you, if it's going to go complex, you're going to end up like this, okay? Trust me. It's because single-page application is such a hard topic. You need to think about so many things at the same time, about security, about performance, reusability, composability, and much, much more stuff. It's so hard. And Angular Router gives it all to you for free, right? It has so many great tools to work with it. It was designed for the people that want to build some complex single-page applications. And one of those tools that he uses are guards. So, yeah, one of the guards is resolver. So, like 10 minutes ago, I saw that half of the audience knows what guards are or know what guards are or use them. So, quick intro for you about guards. So, think of a web app as it was a house, okay? So you stand in front of that house called web application, and you see the front door, okay? You're in a garden. You go in, you end up in a room, like completely different environment, right? You see 3 doors, and if you go through like particular door, you're gonna end up in like completely different room, so you're gonna change the environment again, okay? So it's the same with web applications and single-page applications written in Angular with the help of router. So if you have some routes defined, if you enter a path, you're gonna like see some particular component connected with it, okay? And so yeah, if you are standing like in front of the routes, you go into the particular path, you see different component being rendered on the side, okay? So guards are basically those guys, okay? They stand in front of the doors, and they usually want something from you, and they won't let you pass unless you do it. And in case of router resolver, he always wants some data from you. He wants you to prepare some data. And if the data is prepared, he lets you into the room, or he will let you render the component, okay? So, from Angular's perspective, you can pass to resolver, for example, static data. So this is like the simplest example. You just give it to the resolver. He kind of checks it and then lets you render the component with that data ready. But you can also pass to that resolver asynchronous stuff like promises observable, HTTP requests, and then resolver first waits for that request to end, for example, and then if the data comes back, only then he will let you into the component or into the room. Yeah. So if something goes wrong, if the request fails, you won't render the component, okay? So that's the theory about resolver. Trust me, it can be very helpful and save you a lot of headaches and fix some of your problems. So let's look for some problems. So let's meet the app. Yeah. This is huge. This is like the best app I made. No. Okay, we're in cinema, so it had to be an app about movies, okay? It has 4 modules. Like, first module is just a movie ranking. It shows 5 top-rated movies from the database. And the second one is the same, but for the TV shows. Third one is kind of cool, because I watch a lot of movies, and I often have this problem of finding something new to watch. So you can select something from here, the movie that you like and a TV series that you like, and it will suggest you something cool to watch, okay? Yeah, so it's kind of cool. And the last module is just a profile that kind of summarizes your statistics. So it shows how many followers do you have, how many movies have you watched, and stuff like this. It's super simple, yeah, I know that. But important thing here is that all of those modules are using external service to get the data. So those things are rendered asynchronously, okay? And those movies in this list and movies in both of those dropdowns and the statistics of your profile, okay? It's all async. Yeah, so that's the app. Let's go back to the presentation. Okay. So now we know how it looks from the user perspective. Let's have a look under the hood. So it's like simplest application with router, right? It has some buttons that have some router links, and if you click on it, they change the URL and inject the component into the router. Nothing special here, right? We have some routes defined. It's easy, okay? So when you, for example, look at the movies ranking component from the first module, it basically just uses ngFor to iterate over some kind of an array of movies, okay? Basic stuff. So if that array is empty, we will see a blank space here, okay? Yeah. So if you remember, I just said that it uses external service, external API with movies to get the data to fill that array, okay? So if you wanna, I'm sure that most of you already know this, but I need to be sure. So if you wanna just use external service, you just need to inject it in your component, and then you just send HTTP GET request. And since HTTP service in Angular returns observable, you just subscribe to it. And when the data comes back, you just assign it to the value that we're iterating over, okay, in a view. So yeah, basic stuff again, nothing special here. Okay, so let's have a look at the life cycle of a component that uses async data. So first, when the route is recognized, the component is instantiated with empty data because we said that the basic default value to an empty array, okay? So the component that we see is like component without the list with the blank space, okay? So at the same time, get request is created, is sent, and the component is rendered with the blank space, as I said, okay? And then the async stuff comes in. So if the data comes back from that request, the component is re-rendered with that movies, okay? So this arrow here is crucial because if it's short, if you have a good internet connection, you won't see any like jumps or difference between the blank space and the full list that is rendered, okay? Those are milliseconds, so your eye won't catch it. But if you have a bad internet connection or some backend problems or anything that can make this arrow longer, you're gonna end up with some bad user experience. Because like first, in case of the list, you will see the blank space, and thereafter sometime the list will be rendered, okay? It's not that bad when it comes to the list, but look at the section with your followers, okay? If you would go to that section and see that all of your followers are gone, I mean, it's 21st century, it could end up with heart attack, so we need to prevent it, okay? Yeah. So if you remember, I said that resolver is our guy here, okay? He will help us. And that's because, as I said, he wants us to give him a data and he will prepare it for us and won't do anything and won't instantiate a component if it's not ready to be used, okay? So let's just create a basic resolver for that component. So first thing you need to do, of course, you need to go to your routes and add a resolver property, which is an object, okay? It will be merged into the data of activated route service. And you need to think about the property name that you are going to use. So since we are getting movies here, we just named it movies. And now let's go into the movie resolver service and just create it, okay? But first thing, as I said, we are not going to use this anymore in the constructor, okay? We're getting rid of this. It's not needed here anymore. And instead, we create a class, which is like basic Angular service, but it has to implement the resolve interface. And that interface has to have resolve method on it, because if the route will be recognized, the Angular router will look for that method to fire. And what we want to return from that method is the thing that we pass to the resolver, okay? So in this case, it's that HTTP request. And yeah, resolver will work it out. It will wait until the request ends, and then it will pass the data into the component, and will let you instantiate it. So when we are in the component, we already got rid of that request, and instead, we can use activated route service. Yeah, it's a service that has all the data about activated route, including the things that we declared here, okay? That movies property. So this is the thing that we are going to use here, okay? And I'm using snapshot here, which is like a static object with data, but you can as well subscribe to that data, because if I would like backspace it, we will get an observable, so we would have to subscribe to it, but it'd still be faster than like getting the data from external API, okay? Yeah, so that's all about creating resolver into the component. And now let's have a look at the lifecycle of component and see the difference. What's the difference between component with resolver and component without it? So first, the route is recognized. The first step is the same, but the component isn't instantiated right away. Instead, the Angular looks for the resolver, for the resolve method. It creates the HTTP, the request, okay? It sends the request and waits for it to end. And so the data comes back. Angular passes it through to the component. So the component is constructed, instantiated with the data ready to be rendered. So component is rendered with single shot, okay? Without like those fuzzy jumps or default values set to 0. Yeah, it's instantiated right away. Okay, so this was like the first resolver. Quickly, let's just create other resolvers. So for the endpoint that gives us the TV shows list, it's basically copy-paste process, okay? You just need to like, and the only difference is endpoint, okay? So here we need to change endpoint in the new resolver. We need to change some names in the paths, in the routes definitions, and of course we should change the variables in the component that we'll be using this resolver, okay? Yeah, so we have two resolvers for two endpoints, okay? For movies and for TV shows. Now, if you remember the third component, it required both of those endpoints, one for each dropdown, okay? One was with TV list, second one was with TV shows. So what we can do here is we can create a resolver for that component, right? But there's no point in it, because we already have those two resolvers created. And this is the composition of the resolvers. It's super cool, especially if you have, like, in your application, multiple sources of data, and you want to use them across all of the components, across all the modules. It's super usable. I love doing it in most, in most cases, yeah? So, yeah, okay. And of course, in the component, in the movie component, you just need to assign two values, yeah? That's all, that's all. And so, yeah, now we prevent the problem, now we fix the problem of that laggy experience with jumping things and values changing from 0 to something. But it still kind of sucks, because we have to wait so much for the content to render, and we don't know what's going on. So we would like to use here some kind of notification, okay? It would be awesome for the user. And how we can do it? First, let's assume that we have some service that shows this notification on the bottom of the screen. It's not important how it works in this context, okay? Let's think it's abstract, but it shows the thing and hides it as well. So one thing we can do here is we can use this service to show the notification, the loading notification on the bottom, right before we send the request, okay, in the resolver. So yeah, we show the notification and then we wait for the resolver to end. If it ends, in the subscription, we can just hide it, okay? Yeah, it will work, it's fine. But if you have like tons of resolvers, you will have to do it in every single resolver, right? So yeah, it will work, but I'm lazy, I don't want to do it. It's a better way to, there's a better way to do it, okay? And it's called router events. So what we're gonna do here is we're gonna use router service and subscribe to the events property, which is unobservable. And basically, anytime that a router event happens in your application, and you are subscribed to this event, you're gonna get something, okay? You're gonna get an event. So we can check if event that came in is a resolve start, and if resolve started, we can show the loading on the bottom of the screen. And if it's resolve end, we can like hide it. Yeah, it's super simple, and we have to do it only in one place. So yeah, it's much faster. Okay, but how about error handling? I mean, like if we don't have anything for it, the user can wait forever. Okay, so we need some kind of error message here, and the easiest way to do it again is to do it in a resolver. Okay. But first, yeah, we need to kind of extend our abstract service with notifications by adding here a method that shows that error and hides it. Yeah, just for just the basic stuff. And then, if we go to the resolver, since we are using observables, we can just catch this error, do something with it, like business logic with errors. But important thing for us here is that we want to show the error from notification if we catch an error. Okay. It will work, but again, we have to do it in every single resolver. And again, I'm lazy. So what we can do here is we can go into your route module, and in the place where you are using for root method, you can pass here some kind of, you can pass here a config and use error handler and pass here a class. And this class needs to implement an interface of error handler. So basically, each time an error happens in your app, and it's like from the router, this method will be fired. Okay. So here we can use our notification service to show that error message or that error component. But please keep in mind that it's not only getting the errors from the resolvers, but all the errors connected to the router. So yeah, that's the drawback. But again, it's so fast, and it needs to be done in one place. Okay, so like we improved it. We improved a lot of things, so let's just summarize it. Okay, so first, when we started, we didn't have any resolvers, right? We added them, and first of all, we prevent that load phase, okay, that we started with it. But at the same time, we created reusable resolvers that can be used, like as I said, across your application and shared between components and modules, okay? So yeah, it's kind of like, again, we're speeding up our development, and it's kind of secure. And then we improved the UX by adding notifications that are based on routers, events. So it's also awesome. And we added error handling inside of our root module. But the thing we did in each of the steps, and I kind of didn't mention it, I should, because it's the topic of the talk, it's the title of the talk, is that we separated the logic of, like, for example, when we took off that logic of error handling from the component and used it inside the resolver, this is so good thing to do, because the component doesn't need to worry about like handling errors or showing notification. He just knows that he will get some data, and he knows what to do with it, and it's the job of a component. It's super cool, it's clean, and it helps you with tests, because you don't have to mock some kind of services. You're sure that you're gonna get your data into the component. Yeah, so Resolver works awesome, and I highly recommend using it in most cases, but please remember not to over-engineer with it, because sometimes if you have some like very simple use case, there's no need to use Resolver. So yeah, that being said, thanks for the attention.